I never imagined a weathered streetlight on a Memphis street corner would illuminate the deepest secret of my existence. I'm Grayson Talbert, and these days, I keep my life uncomplicated. At 42, I design HVAC systems, those essential units that battle the relentless Tennessee humidity. My life follows a peaceful rhythm now. Each morning, I run beside the Mississippi River, watching sunlight dance on its rippling surface. Evenings find me at Rusty's Tap, a local watering hole where blues music fills the air and cold beer flows freely. It's worlds apart from my turbulent past, memories I believed were safely locked away. But that evening, beneath that flickering streetlight outside Rusty's, my carefully constructed world unraveled. The bar was alive with its usual energy, my second IPA half-finished, when the entrance door creaked open. In walked a young woman, her boots echoing against the worn floor. She stood tall, piercing green eyes set in a face framed by windswept dark hair, pulled back hastily. Her gaze swept the room before landing squarely on me. My insides churned. Something about her stirred distant memories, like a half-remembered dream. She cut through the crowd with purpose, making a beeline for my table. Her words sliced through the ambient noise. "Hey, Dad," she said. Those two syllables hit me with the force of a sledgehammer. I stayed frozen, beer suspended midair, staring at this familiar stranger who regarded me with years of pent-up expectation. She introduced herself as Juniper. 23 years old now, she'd grown into someone fierce and unfamiliar. 7 years had passed since I'd walked away from her, from everything I'd played father or thought I had to her and her siblings. Back then, she was just a little girl, sporting pigtails and endless curiosity, following me around while I worked on ventilation systems. Now, she stood before me transformed, a woman radiating anger, her fists clenched tight enough to whiten her knuckles. "Why'd you leave us?" The question came out quiet but charged with emotion. The usual bar chatter died down as curious onlookers turned our way. I placed my bottle down carefully, struggling to maintain composure despite my racing heart. The answer she sought wasn't simple, not one she was ready to hear. Not yet. Hey, before we delve deeper into this complicated story, I'm curious about where you're tuning in from. Leave a comment, maybe you're a fellow Memphian, or perhaps you're listening from across the country. If you're intrigued by what you've heard so far, don't forget to hit subscribe. There's plenty more to this story, and believe me, what's coming next will blow your mind. Here's the mystery that haunted me. I never understood how Juniper managed to track me down. I've been meticulous about erasing my trail, at least I believe so. 7 years spent as a ghost, drifting between Georgia's winding back roads and Alabama's lonely truck stops, before finally settling in Memphis. I crafted a modest existence here, working with a local HVAC company, drawing up blueprints for towering offices and sprawling strip malls. My past remained locked away, unknown to everyone, my employer, my pool-playing buddies at Rusty's. But somehow, Juniper knew. She claimed the seat opposite me, her gaze unwavering and intense. "I searched for you," she declared, her words cutting like steel. "It took years, but I succeeded. Mom told everyone you were dead. Said your truck went off the road. End of story. I never believed it. And here you sit, drinking beer like nothing ever happened." The atmosphere grew oppressive, reminiscent of Memphis air before a thunderstorm. "Dead? So that was Maris's story?" My former wife's voice resonated in my thoughts, smooth as silk yet cold as ice, weaving tales to conceal whatever chaos ensued after my departure. I reclined, observing Juniper carefully. She held steady, challenging me to provide answers. Outside, the streetlight's erratic glow cast sharp shadows across her features. I could have fabricated another story, dismissed her concerns, told her to return home. But something in her demeanor, that familiar determined glint I remembered from her childhood, made me pause. I inhaled deeply. "I'm not your father," I confessed, the truth tasting acrid as I spoke. Her jaw clenched, and I braced myself for her reaction. "What the hell are you talking about?" she demanded. In that moment, I realized the buried truth was emerging, regardless of my readiness. The ambient noise of Rusty's Tap receded as Juniper's question lingered. "What the hell are you talking about?" she repeated, her voice piercing through the smoky atmosphere. Those green eyes, so like her mother's, bore into me with unwavering intensity, demanding explanations I'd avoided for years. I adjusted my position, the old leather seat protesting beneath me, and glanced at the pulsing streetlight outside. Its unsteady illumination felt like an interrogation lamp I couldn't escape. I wasn't your father, I repeated, more deliberately this time, letting the reality sink in. Not biologically. Her expression transformed from confusion to rage, and her fist struck the table, making my beer bottle wobble. The bar fell silent, all eyes drawn to our drama, but I maintained focus on her. This truth, at least, I owed her. She leaned forward, her breath tinged with the sharp scent of spearmint, and growled, "You can't just drop that bomb and sit there silently. I need answers. Right now." My chest constricted painfully. Despite rehearsing this conversation countless times, in dingy motel rooms or watching sunrises by the riverbank, facing her fierce presence was entirely different. Her rage was palpable, a dangerous force swirling between us, poised to attack. I took a long pull from my beer bottle, letting its cold bitterness anchor me to reality before setting it down carefully. "Fine," I conceded. "You want a whole story? I'll tell you. But Juniper, it's going to cut deeper than you expect." Her jaw tightened visibly, but she held her ground, responding with a curt, decisive nod. "Tell me everything." I began with my previous life in Charlotte, North Carolina, abandoned 7 years prior. "I was married to Maris, your mother," I explained. "We had 3 kids, you, Theo, and Lila. I thought we had it all figured out. I was working overtime designing HVAC systems for major buildings, burning midnight oil to keep our finances stable. Your mom worked part-time at an upscale furniture store, selling luxury pieces to wealthy clients. We had the classic suburban setup, brick house, family dog named Buster, living the quintessential American dream. You were always my little apprentice then, curious about every humming vent and cooling system. I'd lift you up to examine the blueprints, feeling incredibly proud." Juniper's expression softened momentarily, a brief flash of recognition, before hardening again. "Continue," she commanded, her tone unyielding. Then came the revelation I'd buried deepest. 7 years ago, my company implemented a new health policy requiring comprehensive checkups. Standard procedure. They checked everything from blood pressure to cholesterol levels. I went in expecting routine results, but the doctor requested a follow-up meeting. Initially, I dismissed any concerns, blamed it on too much Southern cooking. But his serious demeanor as he asked, "Grayson, were you aware you're sterile?" shattered my composure. I dismissed it with nervous laughter, insisting, "That's impossible, Doc. I have 3 children. You must have mixed up the results." His expression remained grave as he presented the medical report. He explained this wasn't a recent development, it dated back to my childhood, likely from a severe tractor accident when I was 10. In that moment, my reality crumbled. 3 children, and biologically, none could be mine. Juniper's breath hitched, a fragile, broken sound, but she remained silent. I continued, my voice barely above a murmur, as if sharing secrets in a confessional. I couldn't bring myself to tell Maris immediately. I needed certainty first. Under the pretense of routine vaccinations, I took you children to the pediatrician, secretly arranging DNA tests. The results arrived 2 weeks later. Parked behind a remote gas station off Interstate 85, I sat alone in my truck, opening the envelope with trembling hands. Though the words swam before my eyes, the truth was crystal clear. Not one of you, not Theo, not Lila, shared my DNA. The report revealed 3 distinct fathers. Your mother had been unfaithful for years, weaving an intricate tapestry of deception I'd been too naive to notice. I remained there, engine humming, until darkness fell, feeling utterly untethered. Her clenched fingers relaxed, but her expression froze in disbelief. "Why didn't you confront her?" She whispered hoarsely. I admitted. Could have rushed home, brandished the evidence, demanded explanations and names. But what purpose would that serve? You were my children, in every meaningful way. I'd been there through first steps, bicycle lessons, bandaged wounds. I couldn't bear to destroy that. So I chose differently. I packed my belongings, left half our money, and penned a brief note. I saw everything. Then I drove away, leaving Charlotte and everything I knew behind. Until this moment. Juniper's breathing grew rapid as she stared at me. A melancholic blues melody drifted from the bar's jukebox, filling the heavy silence between us. She retrieved a weathered photograph from her jacket, capturing our family at a county fair, all beaming faces and sugary treats. She placed it deliberately on the table. "This was real," she said, her voice breaking. "You abandoned this. Abandoned me. And now you're saying it was built on lies?" I reached for the photograph, my fingertips grazing its worn edges, and something within me shattered. "Not everything," I whispered. "Never the love I had for you." Her eyes welled with tears, but she quickly blinked them away. "Then how'd you end up in this place?" she demanded. "How is it I found you hiding in this dingy bar, pretending we don't exist?" I leaned forward, the harsh streetlight catching the sheen of perspiration on my forehead. "That's the next chapter," I replied carefully. "But first, tell me something. What did your mother say after I disappeared? What secrets is she keeping now?" Juniper's lips parted before pressing into a thin line. Her gaze drifted to the flickering streetlight outside, as if searching for answers in its glow. When she finally met my eyes again, her voice carried winter's chill. "She called you a coward, said you ran because you couldn't handle our family. But I sense there's more to this story, and I'm not leaving until I hear everything." Her words hung heavy in Rusty's Tap's smoky air. "She thinks there's more," she repeated, eyes narrowing as the streetlight outside pulsed rhythmically. "And I won't budge until I know it all." I settled back, the wooden chair creaking beneath me, and ran a hand over my rough stubble. Though the jukebox played a mournful country tune, it couldn't soften her steely tone. She wanted the whole story, the painful years after I'd fled Charlotte. Drawing a deep breath of the stale bar air, I nodded slowly. "Fair enough," I conceded. "You asked how I ended up here. Let's walk that path together." But it's not a pretty tale. After leaving that note, I saw everything. I had no destination in mind, just a packed duffel, half her bank account, and a full tank of gas. I drove south from Charlotte, watching city lights fade into pine forests along Interstate 85. My thoughts were chaos. Your mother's deceptions, your innocent faces, those damning DNA results. An emotional tempest I couldn't escape. Atlanta was my first stop, at a cheap motel off Peachtree where neon buzzed endlessly. Sleep proved elusive. I'd lay awake, studying water stains overhead, wondering about those 3 men, your real fathers. Did they know about you? Had they ever held you? These questions tormented me until I couldn't bear it. So I kept running. The highways blurred together as I crossed state lines. Georgia melting into Alabama, then Mississippi. Survival meant taking whatever work came my way. Pumping fuel at a Montgomery gas station, loading boxes at a catfish farm near Mobile, even cooking hush puppies at a greasy spoon outside Jackson. Under the table pay, no paperwork required. I kept to myself, working until physical exhaustion drowned out my thoughts. But peace was always temporary. In a dimly lit Biloxi bar one evening, nursing my whiskey, some drunk stumbled over. He grabbed my shoulder, slurring, "You've got that look, man, who's lost it all." I pushed him away, but his words cut deep. I'd lost everything that mattered: my children, my home, my entire existence. Dark thoughts began creeping in. I drove to the Gulf Coast, parked near the shoreline, watching waves crash under the starless sky. The thought of walking into those waters, letting the tide take me, seemed almost peaceful. But I couldn't do it. Not while you were out there, Juniper, wondering why your father had disappeared. I continued drifting, barely existing in my own narrative. New Orleans found me sleeping in my truck behind a jazz venue, waking to sweet beignet aromas and mournful saxophone notes. I'd spend hours on Bourbon Street, drawing HVAC systems on bar napkins to maintain some connection to my former life, but never lingered long. Every place held echoes of what I'd lost. Children catching fireflies in Baton Rouge, families sharing meals in Birmingham. It was unbearable. Then fate caught up with me one sticky night in Hattiesburg. While repairing an AC unit at a mechanic shop for quick cash, 2 men in pristine suits appeared. One displayed his credentials. "FBI," he announced. "Mr. Talbert, we need to discuss something." My stomach lurched. Apparently, my old HVAC designs for that Charlotte military facility were classified, critical components of air defense systems. My disappearance had raised red flags about potential security breaches. I explained truthfully, I wasn't selling secrets, just running from personal demons. They released me with a warning, but I felt their surveillance afterward, present in every mirror reflection. Memphis became my final destination. I arrived on a dreary afternoon, watching the Mississippi River churn beneath leaden skies. Landing a position at a modest HVAC company, I spent my days servicing units in local eateries and storage facilities. Nothing glamorous, but paid the bills. The city's unhurried pace matched my need for anonymity. I found a narrow shotgun house within earshot of Beale Street, where nightly blues melodies drifted through my windows and established a routine of riverside runs to quiet my troubled mind. For a moment, I believed I'd successfully buried my past. Then fate intervened through a chance encounter with Hollis at a local barbecue establishment. A contractor with an overwhelming personality but undeniable business acumen. He noticed me sketching ventilation improvements for smoke-filled kitchens on a paper placemat. He immediately recognized potential where I saw a mere distraction. His business was losing ground to larger competitors due to inferior systems. "You're squandering your talent on basic repairs," he insisted. "Help me revolutionize my operation." Initially, I dismissed his proposition, but his persistence, marked by regular deliveries of smoked ribs and cold beer, eventually wore down my resistance. Our partnership flourished as we overhauled his designs, securing a major contract with a Tennessee steakhouse chain. Gradually, I rediscovered my sense of purpose, not complete redemption, but a step toward it. Juniper sat across from me, her fingers absently tracing the weathered edges of the fair photograph. The bar had emptied, leaving us suspended in heavy silence. "So you found your redemption," she stated flatly. "What about us? What about Mom?" Meeting her gaze through the harsh streetlight streaming through the window, I responded, "Maris didn't want me back. She created her own narrative, told you I was dead, didn't she? What else did she tell you?" Her hand stilled on the photograph as her voice lowered dangerously. "She claimed you shattered her heart, left her to rebuild alone. But I discovered something last week, something she tried to hide." My heart raced. "What?" She withdrew a well-worn, folded letter from her pocket and slid it across the table. "Read it," she commanded. "It's from her, and it changes everything." The letter lay between us on Rusty's Tap's worn table, its creased edges catching the harsh glow of the streetlight filtering through the window. Though Juniper's voice remained steady, her trembling fingers betrayed her as she nudged the paper in my direction. "Read it," she repeated, her tone a challenge I couldn't ignore. I paused, the ambient bar noise fading to a distant buzz. My palms grew damp as I unfolded the paper, revealing Maris's distinctive slanted script sprawling across the page like unwilling confessions. Juniper's emerald eyes, sharp as shattered glass, never left my face. As I began reading, each word excavated the past I'd fought to keep buried. Maris explained how, after my departure, she fabricated a story about my death in a truck accident near Asheville. It was simpler than confronting the truth that her secrets had driven me away. She cast herself as the widow, me as the deserter, spinning the tale so convincingly she began believing it herself. But beyond excuses, she confessed to her infidelities. 3 men, 3 pregnancies, each revelation like a blade in my back. First came a smooth-talking furniture store colleague named Vance, who seduced her during late inventory shifts. Then a wealthy architect client, lingering unnecessarily while selecting dining sets. Finally, a high school flame encountered at a bar a single night with lasting consequences. She left them nameless, their shadowy presence taunting me. Juniper's breath caught as I voiced these revelations, her hands clenching instinctively. "Continue," she urged, voice strained. The devastating revelation waited below. Maris disclosed how she'd tracked me after I left, employing a private investigator with our joint savings. She knew about my Memphis life, my association with Hollis, but kept this from you children. She claimed confronting me risked exposing her carefully constructed facade. Then came the final blow. She'd been battling a terminal illness for years, her body failing, with doctors predicting mere months remaining. This letter represented her final attempt, not seeking forgiveness, but unburdening her guilt before time ran out. I lowered the paper, my throat parched. Juniper's complexion had turned ashen, her lips compressed into a thin line. She knew. She whispered, She knew your whereabouts all along? I nodded slowly, the crushing weight of the revelation settling deep in my bones. Maris had lurked in the shadows all these years, allowing her children to mourn a fabricated death while she played the role of the grieving widow. Juniper snatched the letter back with trembling fingers, her composure cracking. I discovered it in her desk drawer last week, she confessed, her voice unsteady. She'd been hiding her coughing fits, concealing medication bottles throughout the kitchen. When I confronted her, she finally broke down and admitted it was cancer. She claimed she kept your truth from us to spare us additional pain. But I couldn't let it rest. I drove here nonstop from Charlotte, 600 miles straight through, desperate to find you. Her voice shattered, raw emotion bleeding through. Theo's falling apart, Lila's completely adrift, and Mom's dying. You're our only hope for making things right. I gazed at her, the bar's interior, seeming to spin. Make things right? I echoed with a bitter laugh. I'm the one who abandoned everyone. She pushed back her chair abruptly, the harsh scrape against the floor cutting through the ambient noise. Then return with me, she demanded. Confront her. Face our family. Blood relation or not, you still mean something to us. The DNA results don't matter, Theo, and Lila need you. I need you. The remaining patrons turned to watch the brewing confrontation, but Juniper stood her ground. She grabbed her jacket with determined movements, threw it over her shoulder, and waited expectantly. I massaged my temples, Maris's written words burning through my thoughts. 7 years of running, only to be cornered by a 23-year-old displaying more courage than I'd ever possessed. Fine, I conceded finally, rising slowly. Let's go. But don't expect a happy ending, Juniper. You understand that, right? She offered a tired, bitter smirk. When has anything about our family ever been happy? The journey to Charlotte passed in a haze of headlights and heavy silence. 40 stretching endlessly like an uncertain lifeline. Juniper remained silent in the passenger seat, watching dark pines blur past, the crumpled letter resting in her lap. We made one brief stop at a Knoxville gas station, purchasing stale coffee and beef jerky that remained largely untouched. My truck protested each mile, the engine's complaints echoing our shared dread. Charlotte's skyline emerged as dawn broke, painted in bruised purples and golds. The old house appeared diminished, its red brick weathered, front yard overtaken by weeds. Juniper led the way up the cracked path, her boots disturbing loose stones. She didn't bother knocking, simply pushed the door open and stepped inside. Maris was huddled on a threadbare couch in the living room, wrapped in a quilt that once belonged to us both. Time had taken its toll, her previously raven hair now streaked with silver, her complexion ashen in the early morning light. She stared unseeing at a television screen filled with static snow, unaware of my presence. Juniper broke the silence with a deliberate throat clearing. Mom, she announced, her tone gentle but resolute. Someone's here to see you. Maris turned her head slowly, and upon seeing me, her grip failed. The coffee mug she held crashed to the hardwood, splintering into jagged pieces. Grayson, the name escaped as a hoarse whisper. Her eyes darted frantically between Juniper and me. What have you told him? She demanded, struggling to right herself. Juniper's posture stiffened as she crossed her arms. The truth. All of it. Maris collapsed back, clutching the quilt like armor. I remained motionless, the air heavy with decades of deception. You monitor my every move, I said quietly. Watch me suffer while feeding them lies. Tell me why. Her mouth quivered, but her gaze grew steely. Because you abandoned us to clean up your mess, she hissed. You fled, leaving me to keep this family intact. I don't regret it. Not then, not now. Those affairs were mistakes, but these children are mine. You forfeited any right to them when you walked away. I advanced, the floorboards protesting beneath my weight. And that gave you permission to play puppet master. I challenged. To erase me from their memories? Her laugh was hollow, fractured. Perhaps not. But what's done is done. What's your grand plan now, Grayson? Come to be our savior? A sudden thump from above interrupted us. Juniper startled, her attention snapping upward. Theo, she muttered before rushing toward the stairs. I followed, leaving Maris hacking into her makeshift shield. We discovered him sprawled across his childhood bedroom floor, an empty bourbon bottle rolling beneath the bed frame. At 20, he'd grown broad but haunted, his knuckles raw and bruised. He squinted up at me, confusion clouding his intoxicated gaze. "Dad," he slurred. "They said you were dead." Juniper knelt beside him, voice sharp with urgency. "He's not. Now, get up. We got worse things to deal with." I stood paralyzed, the room swirling with memories of a life stolen. Both mine and the one Maris had fabricated. Everything was unraveling at breakneck speed. Theo's slurred words hung heavy in his cluttered bedroom, the stale scent of bourbon mingling with despair. "Dad, you were supposed to be dead." I remained frozen on the creaking floorboards while Juniper struggled to lift him, his dead weight slumping against her slight frame. From downstairs, Maris's harsh coughs reverberated through the house, wet and rattling, a grim reminder of her dwindling time. Moving forward, my boots scuffing against the worn carpet, I grasped Theo's other arm. He peered at me through bloodshot eyes before wrenching away, stumbling backward into a desk overflowing with dog-eared automotive magazines. "You can't be real," he mumbled, batting at empty air. Juniper's expression was a mixture of desperate plea and cautionary warning. "He's been this way since. Mom's condition worsened," she explained. "We need to get Lila, too. Everything's crumbling here." We discovered Lila in the attic, slouched in a deflated beanbag, her features illuminated by her phone's glow. At 18, she'd grown angular, with untamed blonde hair, mindlessly scrolling social media as if reality had ceased to exist. She remained oblivious to our presence until Juniper called her name with commanding authority. Lila's head snapped up, eyes widening in shock. Upon seeing me, her phone clattered to the wooden floor. She leaped up, her voice quavering. "You meant to be dead," she whispered. "Mom told us," Juniper interrupted sharply. "Mom wasn't honest," she stated. "He's alive, and we're getting out." Lila's eyes darted between us, terror mounting. "Getting out? To where?" I moved closer, my shadow stretching across her face. "Memphis," I replied. "With me. This place stopped being home long ago." Maris awaited us as we escorted Theo and Lila downstairs, her weakened form huddled on the sofa, the quilts sliding to the ground. She offered no resistance, watching silently as Juniper packed essentials, clothing, select photographs, Theo's cherished tools. I stood guard by the entrance, arms folded, tension suffocating the room. "You're stealing them," she wheezed, voice cracking. "Playing savior after everything?" I held her gaze steadily. "No," I countered. "I'm just what remains. You chose your path, Maris." Her laugh emerged broken, dissolving into coughs, as she gestured dismissively. "Leave then," she rasped. "Take them. But don't pretend this makes things right." I remained silent. Some wounds were beyond healing. The journey back to Memphis weighed heavily on us all, the truck's interior silent save for the engine's steady drone and Lila's occasional muffled sobs from the back seat. Theo slumped against the window, gradually sobering up, while Juniper sat rigid in the front, her jaw clenched tight. I focused on the road ahead, watching the I-40 stretch endlessly beneath storm-laden skies. Near Jackson, Tennessee, halfway through our drive, Lila's phone suddenly vibrated. She let out a choked gasp, holding up the screen. A neighbor from Charlotte had texted. Maris had passed away, found lifeless on her living room floor shortly after our departure. The cancer had claimed its victory. Juniper's fists tightened, but she remained tearless. Theo muttered a bitter curse under his breath. I gripped the steering wheel harder, the news settling like a stone in my stomach. She persisted just long enough to witness our exit. Upon reaching Memphis, I acted swiftly. I secured a 2-story duplex near Beale Street. The paint was peeling, but the structure was sound, and moved us all in. Juniper enrolled at the University of Memphis, pursuing engineering. She expressed a desire to create rather than destroy, unlike Maris. Theo claimed a corner of the garage, transforming it into his workshop, earning money by fixing damaged vehicles. Lila initially resisted change, clutching her phone like an anchor, but I insisted she attend counseling at a local community center. Gradually, she opened up to me, to Theo, even striking conversations with strangers at the nearby barbecue place. I resumed work with Hollis's crew, designing HVAC systems for bustling steakhouses. We weren't technically family, not by blood or legal ties, but we'd formed something unique, a fractured yet resilient unit surviving against the odds. Maris's deceptions outlived her. Post her passing, Charlotte buzzed with rumors, tales of her affairs, the private investigator, the children she'd falsely claimed were mine. Her recent husband, someone she'd connected with after my departure, abandoned her when the truth surfaced. The furniture store terminated her employment before the illness completely incapacitated her, her reputation destroyed by the revelations. She'd lost everything: her marriage, career, children, all consequences of building her life on lies. I never remarried, lacking trust in my judgment. Yet having Juniper, Theo, and Lila proved sufficient. Maris's betrayal exacted a clear toll. A shattered family, a broken woman, lives completely upended. I learned the hard way that honesty isn't negotiable. It's the foundation that sustains you when chaos strikes. And love, even when not bound by blood, means remaining present, regardless of circumstances. And so our tale draws to its conclusion. How did this ending resonate with you? Was it what you anticipated, or did it take you by surprise? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this narrative touched your heart, remember to leave a like and subscribe for future stories. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey. Until we meet again,